What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another video on the Texas Rangers Report. And in this video, we are going to be revisiting the Joey Gallo trade in the summer. At the trade deadline, we all know that the Rangers traded, at least he was my favorite player, Joey Gallo. Obviously, we know big home run, strikeout, walk guy. And the question was, obviously, we lost like 100 something games last year, only won 60. Although the question was, do we extend Gallo or do we trade him, given that he was our best trade chip? So, the Rangers chose the route of trading Joey Gallo. And at the time, it seemed like the Rangers got fleeced in the Gallo deal. Who did we get? We got Ezekiel Duran, Josh Smith, Trevor Hauver, and Glenn Otto. However, after Joey Gallo played terribly for the New York Yankees, and a lot of the prospects, pretty much every single prospect that we got back, played pretty well in the minor leagues or in the Arizona Fall League, it's looking better and better for the Texas Rangers. And I mean, that trade really helped revamp our farm system. You can look at MLB.com, and Josh Smith and Ezekiel Duran are both in our top 10. I'm doing my top 30 prospect ranking for this upcoming season. Both of those guys are in my top 5, I believe, or top 6. I don't want to spoil the prospect ranking too much, but yeah, Joey Gallo, the Gallo trade pretty much revamped our farm system. And then you look at Trevor Hauver, he could be a guy that has a solid bat, not so much a true position at the major leagues, but if his bat plays, maybe you throw him at first, second, DH, a corner outfield spot. And then Glenn Otto already showed promise last year for the Texas Rangers as a starting pitcher. So I think that the Rangers did good in this trade. Obviously, at the time, it was like, oh man, we need to get Anthony Volpe or the Martian. That's the nickname for the Yankees outfield prospect. We didn't get any of those guys, but it might just be because they were lower ranked prospects at the time, like Ezekiel Duran and Josh Smith. And whenever they were re-ranked, it's starting to look better for the Rangers, especially since they played well and Joey Gallo didn't. And we all know Joey Gallo is a free agent after the year. But just seems like his stint in New York didn't really pan out too well. From Ron Duffney, did Joey Gallo trade to the Yankees? He was traded to the Yankees at the deadline last year. But this brings an interesting topic right now because I feel like the Rangers are in the middle of being competitive, but also still in the middle of that rebuilding phase. So it's kind of like there are some guys on the roster where you could trade them and you could still help rebuild the farm system. But it's also like we signed guys like Marcus Semien, Corey Seager to compete, but those are long-term deals. So is he still trying to compete in the long term? I'm guessing yes. So could Isaiah Kiner-Falefa be a trade target or a trade piece? He could be really attractive because he's a shortstop, and I mean, there's a lot of teams that need shortstops, and not too many are available. And you get him for 2 years of club control. The question is, you could play him at third and have Josh Young stay in the minors, which I really don't like, or could you have him as a really versatile utility man? But he only has 2 years of club control left, so you could use his trade value because I think a team will probably overpay since he's a shortstop, and you can help build that farm system like you did in the Joey Gallo trade. From Luis Dominguez, do you see him signing back with us or being traded to us by next year? I don't think we'll trade for him. But as far as signing back, I think the Rangers will be interested. Although if he has a qualifying offer, that might make it a little less interesting for me. But the new collective bargaining agreement could throw everything up. So yeah, we'll just see on that. I think we have a lot of things in our head right now, but then like the collective bargaining agreement could go and like change everything up based on like luxury tax or um compensation or some like draft picks. It could all get changed. But yeah, let's just go as a hypothetical. I've already gone over like how this trade has affected us for the better of the franchise, but let's just say we didn't make the trade. So Joey Gallo still on our club. Obviously, I think he'd still be the starting right fielder. You would have Adolis in center. We probably wouldn't have Cole Calhoun. I do still think we'd be interested in Seiya Suzuki or Kyle Schwarber, but that takes away 4 of our top 30 prospects and 2 that were in the top 10. And for a team that's trying to turn the corner and go from a rebuilding franchise to a competitive franchise, I think you need those prospects for 2 reasons. For trades like a Matt Olson or Luis Castillo or other All Stars, but also let's just say like prospects are also the best way to have cheap players for a longer period of time. And I know that's not popular because I know like teams can manipulate the service time in order to have them for longer, but it's true. And that's how like you can't build your entire ball club through free agency. So I do think that those prospects that we got in the Gallo trade are crucial. So let's just say Ezekiel Duran, he makes it to the majors and he is a I don't know, a good left fielder for us if he goes to a corner outfield. And Glenn Otto ends up being like a 5th guy in the rotation. That's solid because you get him for the next 6 years, super cheap. Because if you think about it, a lot of teams sign a 5th guy in the rotation for like $6 million, maybe a little less, maybe a little more. But if you're starting to be more competitive and your payroll gets up and up, then you might not have the budget to go after those 6 million per year starters. So, and then you look at Josh Smith, Trevor Hauver, maybe those guys are pinch hitters. Maybe you can use them in trades because Josh Smith might be blocked because Seager, you can move him to second, you can move him to third, but we have Young, we have Simeon, and we also have a lot of other infield prospects. We have Luis Angel Acuna, we have Dustin Harris, we have Justin Foscue, and of course we have Ezekiel Duran. But is this a problem? Not really. I think it's a good problem to have. And you could be saying, well, if we're trying to go after better players through a trade, then why did we trade Joey Gallo? That's a fair point. However, the reason why we traded Joey Gallo is because we weren't going to be able to extend him. That's the main reason. And yes, you could try to sign him back during free agency, but his agent is Scott Boras. So there's no guarantee that he's going back to the Rangers, even as much as he says he wants to be a Texas Ranger. So now you got compensation for him. You help restock the farm system, which is it's really getting exciting. It's a top 10 farm system. You bolstered it with some of the past drafts, some of the past trades. And it's getting up there for sure. I know for the longest it's in the bottom tier of the league, but now it's in the upper echelon. So that's why we traded Joey Gallo. He wasn't going to get an extension. We got compensation for him. We could have gotten compensation if we let him walk as a free agent and gave him the qualifying offer. But let's just say he had a garbage season next year. then you wouldn't be throwing a qualifying offer on him, and then he would just walk away. But now we got 4 prospects in our top 30, 2 in our top 10, and it helps keep the payroll down for the future or help go after other potential stars. And that's why you do sign guys like Corey Seager, Marcus Seaman, because we have them for the long term. There was no guarantee that we were going to get Joey Gallo for the long term. And if we were to trade for a Matt Olson or a Luis Castillo, so that kind of goes against what I'm saying. I think it has to be, I think it has to come with, yes, we are going to get an extension done, kind of like with Francisco Lindor last year. We all knew that he got traded to the Mets, and we're like, okay, they didn't trade all those prospects. I mean, actually wasn't a lot because the relationship between Lindor and the Indians wasn't great, but they didn't trade all those prospects just to have him walk in free agency. So I think that'd be the same with Castillo or Olson, whichever one is better for the Rangers. I do think Olson would, I mean, not Olson, Castillo would be better for the Rangers because pitchers have the, even though it's a starting pitcher, they pitch every 5 days, they still have the best chance to impact your ball club and the long term rather than a first baseman. That's just how it is. And first basemans are actually super easy to come by in the MLB. And it hasn't been that way for the Rangers. They finally found somebody, and Nate Lowe, in my opinion, he had a solid year last year. And I do think that he could be a breakout guy at the major league level. So, yeah, that's where I am right now with the Joey Gallo trade. I definitely think we got fleeced at the time. However, we sold whenever his value was high, and maybe that's why I wanted a little more in return. I knew that we weren't going to get the Martian or Anthony Volpe. However, um, it's looking better. Hindsight's 2020, and it's also looking like that for the Mike Minor deal as well. We didn't trade him at the deadline back in 2019 when he was an All-Star. I thought we could have got at least one top 100 prospect. However, we traded him when he wasn't actually that great the very next year to the Oakland Athletics, interdivision rivals, and the headliner was an outfield prospect from Oakland, a 4th rounder. I can't think of his name right now. But then we also got a 13th round pick, Dustin Harris, who raked this year. And now Baseball America has him as our 5th prospect. And my prospect rankings, he's a little bit lower, but definitely a top 15 prospect. Just goes to show that it's weird how some things can pan out for better or for worse. From Luis Dominguez, since you mentioned we have a good infield depth in our farm system, do you think we might ever see the young brothers play together? It's possible. Even though we have the 3rd pick in the draft, there's still a lot of things that would actually have to happen to, if we get him in the draft. Yeah. So I was gonna say a lot of things would have to happen in order to get there. Like Jace Young would have to continue to play well for another season, because obviously if he didn't play well, then like there's no question he wouldn't get a top 3 consideration. And then I think the pick would have to be right for the Rangers, and somebody would have to move positions because I think Jace Young's better in the long term at second, maybe first, corner outfield type of guy. But I don't think it's out of the question. Do I think he's the best player in the draft? No, but he could definitely raise his stock. We've definitely seen that in the past with plenty of people. Jack Leiter, for instance, did that this past year. He wasn't the best player going into the season. It was Kumar Rocker. And look what happened. Jack Leiter went number 2 to us. Kumar Rocker got drafted in the 1st round. However, he didn't even sign. He fell all the way down to, he went past a top 10 pick. So it's interesting, but that'd be cool to have the young brothers together. But that's not really my main focus. I really want the best player available to help this organization, whether it's helping them with a trade at some point, helping them at the major league level, etc. So yeah. Let me know. Are you guys interested in re-signing Joey Gallo after this season? For me, I was super interested because he was my favorite player. However, it's funny how things change whenever you sign a Marcus Semien or a Corey Seager. And I love the talent of Joey Gallo. Um, I do love the talent of Joey Gallo because he hits for power. He has a good on base percentage. He does strike out a lot. And he's a gold glover. But if he wants the type of money that was it Bryce Harper wanted instead of Nick Castellanos, we're talking about a few off seasons ago, then that could affect my decision in a reunion with Joey Gallo. And the Yankees most likely will throw on a qualifying offer if he plays well. Granted, if a qualifying offer is still a thing. So I think they might throw that on. And I don't know if the Rangers want to lose top draft picks in back-to-back years. Granted, it's just a second rounder. But with their new draft philosophy, I think their second-round picks have actually been pretty valuable. Last year, you have Evan Carter, who played pretty well until he got fractured, like something in his back or something in his leg. And then you also drafted Aaron Zavala, another outfielder from Oregon, this time taking a college bat. But your second round picks should be impactful, and the Rangers haven't had that in the past. They actually have one of the worst WARs and from a second round pick. So I don't know if we'd be too interested if he had a qualifying offer, or if he had a really, really good year, like an MVP season, which I think he can do. In 2019, he was on that pace, and then he got injured. And if he kept it up this year, whenever he got traded to the Yankees, I think he could have done it or been in the consideration. But I don't know if a reunion is too likely for Joey Gallo and the Rangers. Oh, hold up. Kumar Rocker from Luis Dominguez. What happened to Kumar Rocker? So he was going through the draft process. So like going last year, starting the season in college at Vanderbilt, he was the consistent number one guy. However, and for the majority of the year, it was like him, and then Jack Leiter had flashes. But then like a month or two left in the season, he started to slide. People started to hit his fastball, and then but that wasn't really like too much of a worry because he was still physical. He's a good athlete. He had a lot of the tools. However, when he was going through his physical process with the Mets, they found something wrong with his elbow, and that's why they wanted to sign him for less. Kumar wanted to sign for more, and ultimately he ended up not signing with the Mets. The Mets will get compensation this year, so they'll have 2 first-round picks. However, since they signed a player with a qualifying offer, they will probably lose that comp pick from Luis. To be honest, he still has potential, even though he has been around. Are you talking about Kumar Rocker or Joey Gallo? I'm not too sure. From Ron Duffney, you think the Yankees will re-sign Gallo? I think that's interesting. I don't think they will re-sign Gallo. And then from Luis, I think Gallo's in his prime. I just don't think he's had a full and healthy season. And could you imagine? I think a lot of things are playing for him, especially when he got traded to the Yankees. because the short porches, and then the pitchers stopped using the sticky stuff. He played well after that, and then if the MLB gets rid of the shifts, then that could see Joey Gallo raise his stock dramatically. Granted, you would probably see a lot of left-handed hitters get a lot more hits, but I really do think there's a lot of, or not really untapped potential, but just a lot of baggage hanging around that Joey Gallo can still tap into. And for back to Ron Duffney, I do think it's interesting that you say the Yankees. So I really think they want him out right now because I feel like the Yankees are a type of franchise that really just listens to their fan base and aren't really too strategic with their moves. It's always like, oh, let's go after the biggest guy, the biggest guy, the biggest guy. So they're always trading for the biggest guy, signing the biggest free agents. But it seems like they already don't want Joey Gallo. So from Dak, I want Schwarber and Castillo, Gray, or Kershaw. So I want Schwarber, Castillo. Oh, see, okay, I get it. So you want Schwarber instead of like say a Suzuki, and then you want the three, any of those three guys. And I think, for being honest, Clayton Kershaw would be the easiest to bring into the Rangers franchise because of Chris Woodward, because of Corey Seager that can be recruiting, because Clayton Kershaw lives in Dallas in the offseason. That's where he grew up. But also since his kids are starting to get into the age where they are going to school. And I don't know if he really wants them to be living in Texas and have to commute to LA mid-year. But if going to the Reds pitchers, so it's been reported before the lockout that the Rangers inquired about the Cincinnati Reds pitchers, and we're just going to assume that's Luis Castillo, Sonny Gray, and Tyler Mahle. I think that the easiest to trade for would be Sonny Gray. And I don't think this is a bad thing that he's easy to trade for. Luis Castillo, he's an ace. In my opinion, he would be the toughest one to trade for. They all have 2 years of control. Luis Castillo is the second most expensive. Sonny Gray is the oldest, and he's the most expensive. That's why I think he'd be the easiest to trade for. Tyler Mahle is the most unproven, but he's the cheapest, and he's the youngest. It's kind of like interesting how this is all playing out. But I don't think Gray's would be bad. I think he has a lot of similar traits to Jack Leiter. I don't know if Sonny Gray is really an ace. I think a number 2. But if you throw him in behind Kershaw, or even if you have Gray start in front of Kershaw, I think it's fine for the Rangers because I do think your aces are going to be homegrown aces in Jack Leiter and in Cole Winn. I think those guys are for sure going to be aces, in my opinion. Could Sonny Gray have an ace season? Could Clayton Kershaw have an ace season if he stays healthy? Or any of the prospects in our farm system like Ricky Vanasco, Owen White, for sure. But I think the easiest slam dunk picks are Cole Winn and Jack Leiter. Catherine, trade Gallo somewhere. Yeah. Cashman? Brian Cashman? Maybe. I think they have been trying to, at least before the lockout, but now this lockout makes it a little tough. But honestly, who would play the outfield for him? Obviously, you have Judge, you have Aaron Hicks. Nobody really wants that contract. Maybe, but you need a center fielder. I guess Aaron Hicks is the center field. I don't know. Yankees can figure that out. Trade Gallo. Okay, I really don't know what you're talking about. Yeah, Yankees can decide what they want to do. Matt Chapman to the Yankees. I heard that they're more interested in Matt Olson. But for you guys just joining the live stream, this video was about revisiting the Joey Gallo trade back at the trade deadline. So for it seems 2 or 3 years, Joey Gallo was the face of the franchise, at least in my opinion, for the Texas Rangers. He was my favorite player, and to see him go, I was working that night at for the Dodgers. I was working, and I was at the baseball game, and I was like devastated. I'm like, oh no. I told my coworker Gary, I'm like, and he's actually a Yankees fan. I'm like, Joey Gallo just got traded to the Yankees. And I was refreshing my phone over and over just to see like who we were getting. And I knew going into it, if the Rangers weren't going to extend Gallo, he was going to get traded. And I knew that extension talks had stalled. So I knew that the top teams were like the Padres and the Yankees. I looked at the Yankees farm system, and everybody said it was deep, but I wasn't really interested in most of their prospects. So when I heard the names, I was like, we better be getting like the Martian or Anthony Volpe, but I knew we weren't. And when I heard the names, Ezekiel Duran, Glenn Otto, Trevor Hauver, Josh Smith, I'm like, it seems like we went for just quantity over quality. But I really don't think that's the case now. I know a lot of the fans on this channel thought the same as I did. I actually made a video back in the summer. I was actually like running whenever I filmed it, but I think the narrative on the Joey Gallo trade has changed. Gallo was he was at the highest whenever his value was at the highest. We got two guys to enter into the top 10 in our prospects rankings. And all four of them are in our top 30. Glenn Otto showed some promise this year whenever he got called up to the major leagues. And he killed batters in AAA. And he could be the fifth guy in the rotation for us this year, for being honest. So let's just say we sign Kershaw, we sign an innings, Kershaw, then we have John Gray. And if we sign an innings eater like Zach Davies, obviously I think Dane Dunning is definitely a surefire starter. And then this fifth spot's up for grabs. We have a lot of prospects or former prospects that could definitely fill into this. So you have Glenn Otto, you have that we got in the Gallo trade. We have Spencer Howard, who was one of the best pitching prospects in all of baseball a few years ago with the Phillies. He could be that guy. It could be Taylor Hearn as well. It could also be AJ Alexi, who pitched pretty well in the majors last year as well. So I think the narrative has changed, especially since Joey Gallo went on a really bad slump whenever he was with the Yankees, and it seems like the Yankees don't want him there anymore, which is sad. But I think that the Rangers farm system's in a good spot. I think the Rangers franchise is in a good spot. I think 2023 is a really good chance to be a good team. I do think we're an underdog team for like the second wild card. Do I expect it? No. But 2023, I really do think that's when we could see ourselves in the playoffs again, which is really exciting because that's the year where you start to mix in your prospects with your major league talent. I think that gets to be really exciting. Oh my God. If any of you guys are on the East Coast, it's New Year's. So happy New Year. I always spent New Year's on the East Coast, but not anymore. It was kind of funny whenever, I think 2 years ago, I was celebrating New Year's here in Central Time Zone, but I was always used to the New York ball dropping. So I was waiting till midnight in Central Time to see the ball drop in New York. And whenever it is noon or midnight here, I was looking on TV for the ball to drop with my brother, and I'm like, where is it? Where is it? And there's all these like local channels. I'm like, oh shoot, it's like 1 o'clock there. And yeah, so that's something I figured out. But Happy New Year to everybody in the East Coast. And if you're in the Central Time Zone or Mountain Time Zone or Pacific Time Zone, still got an hour or 2 or 3. But yeah, so I do think the Joey Gallo trade revamped this farm system. The question is, do we need to add more prospects to the farm system, or do we use these prospects to go after guys like Castillo, Gray, or is there another guy that you're thinking of? Because obviously there's other teams that are probably wanting or willing to trade players. Ketel Marte, Brian Reynolds, those are definitely not likely, but that would be definitely interesting. When is the lockout ending? I don't know, Ron, when the lockout's going to end. There has been no reports that have surfaced on this topic. So yeah, I do think this could cut into spring training, and I do think they'll get something resolved before opening day, just because the players and the owners both know how important the regular season is. I mean, for money's sake, if it cuts into the regular season, both players and owners will lose money. I mean, spring training, money can still be gained there. You can still televise a few games, but regular season is where majority of the action and the money is made. And I do think like 2 weeks before regular season starts, you could see a deal get done before then, which would definitely be interesting to see. Would this affect some trade talks for Olsen, Castillo, any of those guys? Would they be better to acquire at the trade deadline? Or do you think teams are already having these conversations? I don't know, but that's legal. But do you think they're already having these conversations so whenever the lockout's over, they can just go boom, 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 and we get all these guys? That's something I'm interested in. Same with the free agents. Do you think clubs are already talking to free agents? Like Rangers are talking to Suzuki, Rangers are talking to Kershaw. So whenever this lockout's over, people can go like that. And the lower tier free agents, it doesn't really get good for you because those guys will have to take lesser deals in order to just get on the ball club, if we're being honest. Because usually there's a wave in the normal free agency where it goes the big dogs, the middle tier, the lesser tier, but they can still negotiate their contracts to get the most. But if there's less time, it's harder to do that, even for the big guys. From Ted Rosewell, Rosewell. Thank you for joining the live stream. Trade Isaiah Kiner for Joey Gallo. And that's interesting. And it's actually a video on the channel. And not a lot of people were like positive on that. But let's dive into it and let's be realistic. So we traded Joey Gallo to acquire prospects because we couldn't extend him. Joey Gallo has 1 year of club control remaining. Isaiah Kiner has 2 years of club control remaining. Do I think that IKF matches the value of Joey Gallo? I don't. However, I think the Yankees are really low on Joey Gallo at the moment, and IKF feels a need for them, a cheap shortstop that's above adequate. But I don't think it makes sense. I think trading IKF for prospects makes sense because you can get cheap, controllable players that can help your team for multiple years instead of, even if you trade for Joey, there's no guarantee that you get him back. You could still walk in free agency. Oh, and just to let you know, check the Discord link in the description down below. because that's where I talk Rangers more than when I'm making videos. That's actually where I've discussed some IKF trades to shortstop needy teams and for certain prospects. So if you're interested in talking more about Rangers, join the Discord. It's in the description down below. From Dak Prescott, do you think IKF gets traded, and if he does, where? Okay, so definitely join the Discord and you'll see. But a few teams that would definitely be interested, I would say the Phillies and the Yankees. But if you want to know like more teams that need shortstops and potential trade packages, go join the Discord and check that out. Matt Chapman to the Yankees again. You are on that Matt Chapman to the Yankees. But don't the Yankees have third baseman in Gio Urshela? But they also kind of have a first baseman in Luke Voigt. I mean, if we're being realistic, the Yankees could trade Luke Voigt, Gleyber Torres, and a prospect. Does that get the deal done? Because I don't think Gleyber Torres is terrible. I feel like he could be a trade of scenery guy. Remember, he's a former top prospect. And Luke Voigt, in the shortened season, and granted it was the shortened season, he was the home run champion. It seems like in New York they don't really give their players a lot of time. It's definitely a tough market. That's why Gleyber Torres could be a change of scenery guy. And I think it's still best you put him at second base. I don't think shortstop is where he's best suited for. But those guys could be a part of the trade package. I remember a long time that the Yankees were always trying to use Clint Frazier as a trade package. If they gave us Clint Frazier for Joey Gallo, I would have said that the Dodgers were my favorite team. They're probably my second favorite team. But if we did it for like Andujar and Clint Frazier and Clark Schmidt, that would have been over for me. Because there's definitely concerns on my part about Schmidt. Like, he's a former top prospect. He's slidden down in the Yankees farm system. Concerns about his durability and staying a starter. Clint Frazier, obviously, if he clicks, he could be an all-star, but it hasn't really clicked for him. And then Andujar, he basically had like one good year, and he doesn't have a defensive position. If the Rangers did that trade, I would definitely want John Daniels fired, but they didn't. And I think a lot of it has to do with Chris Young, and I think that Chris Young has put a good thumbprint on this organization, acquiring good talent like Dane Dunning. I can't think of any other guys. Jonah Heim. I mean, obviously he isn't like, oh my God, that guy's great, like a Salvador Perez, but I think he provides some good value. And just signing some coaches. I mean, obviously he signed Corey Seager, Marcus Semien, John Gray. I think Chris Young has done a really good job, and I don't think we should discredit John Daniels either. From Dak, I think the A's could use IKF to replace Elvis. I think so too, and I think in my Matt Olson, I think in both of my Matt Olson trade proposals on the channel, I had IKF going in those trades, and I do think that the Athletics are a team that needs a shortstop. However, and obviously they're not going to sign. If they're not willing to dish out money for Matt Olson or Matt Chapman, they're not going to sign the top shortstops in Correa or Trevor Story. However, since they're going to be a garbage fire team this year, would they rather just go with one of their top prospects in Nick Allen, or would they actually want to dish out prospects for IKF, or would they rather just give out Matt Olson for IKF because you only get 2 years of club control over him, but maybe they view it as, okay, we'll take on this guy and then we can use him for more prospects down the line. That could be interesting because you get prospects and trade Matt Olson, but then you get a guy in IKF who you could trade for more prospects, because as long as we play in this league, there's going to be teams that need shortstops. That could be something. If we're just trading IKF for prospects from the Athletics, I don't think that makes sense, because the Athletics don't have good prospects. Their farm system has kind of deteriorated, but also I don't think you just do that for an interdivision rival unless it's for Matt Olson. That's the only caveat there. I mean, we have made interdivision trades. It's happened. Most notably the Mike Minor trade. Oakland could be regretting that for giving up Dustin Harris, but things happen. But I think if we trade IKF to the Athletics, it has to be for Matt Olson. But if you trade him for prospects, look to other shortstop needy teams. On another note, I'm a Dallas Cowboys fan. This is going to be a big game against the Arizona Cardinals. I think this is basically going to be like a playoff game, but we'll see how this goes. I'm already interested in like the NFL draft, and since I'm interested in that, I'm looking at the MLB draft, and I think some players to target are definitely like Josh Young, Drew Jones, Elijah Green. But with what the Rangers have done the past few years, I think we'll go after a college bat. And there's definitely some college bats that are there. You have the I don't know all their names yet, but you have the guy from LSU, who some scouts say he's the switch hitting version of Andrew Vaughn. But we'll see. Jace Young should definitely be in the consideration. But I'm really going to try to pay attention to college baseball this year. It's kind of tough because it's not really televised, but there are some good YouTube channels that post highlights. That's how I pay attention to Jack Leiter and Kumar Rocker last year. But I think this number 3 overall pick is going to be significant. This might be the last time in a while that we actually pick this high. Obviously, you can still get talent in many ways through trades, through the international signing period, even getting guys late. There's always ways. But I think this could be the last time we could get a blue chip talent. From Ron Duffney, Matt Chapman. Oh wait, you already said that. Oh, okay. Whoops. Bold prediction: Craig goes to the Cubs. I could see that, or the Phillies. I think the Phillies are really desperate to be competitive, and I wouldn't be surprised if they try to dish out some serious money. Matt Olson to the Yankees, maybe, or the Rangers, but if there are any more comments, put down below. I'm gonna stay on for another minute, but I'd like to thank you all for watching this live stream. I think it was 4 months ago now that the Rangers traded Joey Gallo, and I wasn't too happy, but things are turning for the better. But make sure to hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. I appreciate the support. I'm going to be coming out with more videos even during this lockout and going into the regular season, which should be exciting. And make sure to join the Discord and share the content with any family or friends as well. Last few questions from Dak Prescott. Besides IKF, who wouldn't you mind rating? I think you mean trading. Let's see. That's a tough one. I think it depends on who we're trading for. So it's for Matt Olson. I could definitely see trading IKF and Nate Lowe. But let's say we get to the trade deadline and we're below 500, maybe Jose Leclerc. I'm interested to see how if Adolis Garcia actually builds on his 2021 performance, or if that was just a 1-year deal. Like I think because he's in a weird spot. I thought Spencer Patton was going to be a good trade chip last year, but he actually has some club control. But maybe that ends up being a trade target. But there also will probably be players that go on minor league contracts that we don't even that aren't even on our team, and they become trade targets, just like Ian Kennedy was last year. But I definitely think if I'm just giving you a top three, Jose Leclerc, Adolis Garcia, and Nate Lowe. But obviously, it depends on certain circumstances. So if Adolis is playing well, don't trade him. But if he's playing well but the team isn't playing well, maybe you do trade. It's just certain things. But IKF could make sense right now, if we're being honest. He could make sense right now. You could get a prospect that could help the team this upcoming year. It could be a pitcher, it could be an outfielder, but also those prospects could help in multiple years. But also Jose Leclerc has club options for the next 2 or 3 years. So if the Rangers know they aren't going to pick it up, maybe they could just look at the trade market. Luis Dominguez, are there any other pitchers that we could trade for besides Cincinnati ones? That's what I'm still trying to do research on. I'm looking at to see what teams are probably going to be sellers and what pitchers, or not just pitchers, but players we could possibly acquire. But with that being said, I thank you all again for watching the live stream. Pretty much you guys always watch this live stream. I'm super appreciative of this. But with that being said, I'll see you. Oh, well, last one. Marlins have good pitchers, I think. Yeah, but they're a weird. I don't know if they're trying to compete or not. Thank you all again. Appreciate it. And I'll see you on the next one. Peace.